Hey guys, picture this. You wake up in a stone cell that smells like 40 sweaty men have been marinating in their own stench for weeks. There's straw on the floor that's so old and damp it's gone soggy, and something's definitely crawling around in it. Breakfast is a bowl of lukewarm barley porridge that tastes like someone boiled old shoes, and your only toilet is a bucket in the corner that everyone shares. Welcome to life as a Roman gladiator, where every single day is basically a nightmare your body won't let you wake up from. The arena might get all the attention, but it's the stuff between the fights that would actually break you. The boredom, the bruises, the constant ache in muscles you didn't know you had, and the fact that privacy is something you'll never experience again. If you're enjoying this already, hit that like button and subscribe for more historical horror stories. I'm genuinely curious to know where you're watching from, so tell me in the comments where you are and what time it is right now. So let's step into the world of a Roman gladiator and find out exactly why you absolutely wouldn't last a single day. Your home is a ludus, which is basically just a glorified prison. It's a training school, sure, but it's also where you eat, sleep, and spend every waking moment when you're not being paraded around an arena. The walls are thick stone, which sounds quite nice until you realize they trap every single odor produced by dozens of grown men living on top of each other. Imagine a gym changing room that's never been cleaned, then imagine living in it full time. The smell hits you like a wall the moment you walk in. Sweat, old straw, unwashed tunics, and that musty tang of damp stone that never quite dries out. It gets into everything. Your clothes, your hair, even your food tastes like it after a while. Your sleeping quarters are a small cell with stone walls and maybe a tiny window up high if you're lucky. The window doesn't have glass, obviously, because this is ancient Rome, and they haven't figured that out yet for common use. So when it rains, water just comes in. When it's cold, the cold comes in. When it's hot, well, you're just hot and there's nothing you can do about it. Your bed is a wooden frame with a thin straw mattress that's seen better days. Actually, it's probably never seen better days. The straw inside has been compressed down to almost nothing, so you're essentially sleeping on wooden planks with a thin fabric suggestion of comfort. Every morning you wake up with new aches in places you didn't think could ache. The straw on the floor of your cell is there to soak up moisture and provide some insulation, but mostly it just provides a home for fleas. Fleas absolutely love gladiator quarters. It's like an all-you-can-eat buffet for them. You'll spend a good portion of your downtime scratching at bites on your ankles, your waist, behind your knees, and other places that are deeply awkward to scratch in public. The itching is constant and maddening. You'll develop a technique for scratching without looking like you're scratching, but everyone knows what you're doing, because they're all doing it too. It's like a synchronized scratching routine. There's no such thing as a lie-in. You're woken at dawn by a trainer bellowing through the corridors or banging on doors with a stick. The noise echoes off the stone walls and turns your skull into a percussion instrument. You'll go from dead asleep to wide awake in a state of confusion and mild panic. Your body will hurt from yesterday's training before you've even moved. Your shoulders will be stiff, your thighs will burn when you stand, and your feet will feel like you've been walking on hot coals even though you've been lying down for hours. Getting out of bed is an achievement in itself. Breakfast is served in a communal area, and it's always the same. Barley porridge. Every single day. Barley porridge with maybe some beans if you're lucky, or some vegetables that have seen better weeks. The porridge is lukewarm, and has the consistency of paste. It's filling, sure, but it's about as exciting as licking a stone. The Romans believe this diet makes you strong and bulks you up, which it does, but it also makes you incredibly bored. Imagine eating the same thing every morning for years. The taste is bland, slightly earthy, and it sticks to the roof of your mouth. You wash it down with water or very cheap wine that's been watered down so much, it's basically just grape-flavoured disappointment. The communal eating area is loud and crowded. Everyone's crammed onto benches around long wooden tables that are stained with years of spilled food and drink. The smell of all those unwashed bodies in one room is enough to put you off your breakfast, but you eat anyway because you need the energy. Men are burping, scratching, adjusting themselves, and generally being as unglamorous as possible. There's no polite conversation. It's all grunts, chewing noises, and the occasional argument over who gets the slightly less terrible portion of porridge. The benches are hard and your backside goes numb after about 5 minutes. Privacy is not a thing. You share your cell with at least one other gladiator, sometimes more. You share the eating area with dozens. You share the training yard, the bathing area, and yes, the latrines. Roman latrines are communal. It's a room with a long stone bench that has holes cut into it, and you sit there doing your business right next to other men doing theirs. There's no dividers, no doors, no dignity. Just you, your colleagues, and a very awkward mutual understanding that nobody makes eye contact. The smell in there is something you never fully get used to. It's eye-watering and thick, and in summer it's somehow even worse. There's a sponge on a stick for wiping, which is shared. Yes, shared. You dip it in a bucket of water between uses, but let's be honest, that's not exactly hospital-grade sanitation. Washing facilities are basic at best. There's usually a courtyard with a fountain or a big stone basin where you splash yourself with cold water. Soap exists, but it's not exactly common or good quality. You scrub yourself down with a cloth and some gritty substance that's supposed to clean you, but mostly just removes the top layer of your skin. In winter, washing is an act of bravery. The water is absolutely freezing, and your body goes into shock the moment it touches you. You'll be shivering and covered in goosebumps, hopping from foot to foot, while trying to scrub your armpits. In summer, the water is warm and has been sitting there all day, so it's basically a bacteria soup. You never feel truly clean. There's always a lingering whiff of something about you. Your clothing is simple and not particularly comfortable. A tunic made of rough wool or linen, which is itchy against your skin, especially when you're sweating. And you're always sweating. Training, walking, standing still. It doesn't matter. The Roman sun is brutal, and there's no air conditioning, no fans, no ice-cold drinks. Just you, the heat, and your scratchy tunic clinging to your back. You don't have multiple outfits. You have one, maybe two tunics, and you wear them until they're practically standing up on their own. Laundry is not a daily event. When you do wash your tunic, it takes ages to dry, and in the meantime you either wear it damp or go without. Your shoes, if you can call them that, are basic leather sandals. They're not designed for comfort or support. They're designed to be cheap and easy to replace. The leather rubs against your feet and gives you blisters on your heels and between your toes. The soles are thin, so you feel every stone and bump in the ground. Walking across the hot training yard in summer is like walking on a griddle. In winter, your feet are just cold and damp all the time. You'll develop calluses on top of calluses, and your feet will never look the same again. Forget about pedicures or soft skin. Your feet are now basically leather themselves. Training is brutal, and it happens every single day except for the occasional festival rest day. You start mid-morning after your thrilling barley breakfast, and you don't stop until the afternoon. The training yard is a large courtyard with packed dirt or sand underfoot. In summer, the sand heats up so much you can feel it through your flimsy sandals. It's like trying to exercise on a warm beach. except there's no ocean and no relaxation, just pain. In winter, the sand is cold and damp and it sticks to everything. Your feet, your legs, your hands when you inevitably fall over. It gets in your mouth. You'll be crunching sand between your teeth for hours. The training weapons are wooden. They're called rudis if they're swords, and they're heavier than real swords on purpose. The idea is that if you train with something heavy, the real thing will feel light and fast. That's the theory. The reality is that your arms feel like they're going to fall off after the first hour. The wooden sword is thick and cumbersome, and you have to do drills over and over and over. Thrust, block, step, swing, repeat, hundreds of times. Your shoulder burns, your wrist aches, and your fingers cramp up from gripping the handle. The trainer walks around yelling corrections and occasionally whacking you with a stick if you get it wrong. The shield you train with is also heavier than a real one. It's a big wooden rectangle that's about as tall as your torso, and holding it up for extended periods is an absolute nightmare for your arm. Your forearm muscles will scream at you. You're supposed to keep it raised to protect your body, but after 20 minutes it starts to droop, and that's when the trainer yells at you or throws something at you to make a point. The shield also has no padding on the inside. It's just wood and a leather strap. The edge digs into your forearm and leaves red marks that turn into bruises that never quite fade. You'll have permanent dents in your skin. Footwork drills are endless. You have to learn to move in the sand without losing your balance, which is much harder than it sounds. Sand shifts under your feet. It's not stable. You practice advancing, retreating, sidestepping, pivoting, all while holding your heavy wooden weapons and trying not to fall over. When you do fall, and you will, you faceplant into the sand. It goes up your nose, in your eyes, in your mouth. You'll be spitting out grit for the rest of the day. The other gladiators will laugh. The trainer will yell at you to get up, and you'll haul yourself to your feet with sand stuck to your sweaty face and arms, feeling utterly ridiculous. Sparring is where it gets really interesting. You're paired up with another gladiator, and you go at each other with the wooden weapons. It's not gentle. Yes, they're wooden, but they still hurt. A lot. Getting smacked in the ribs with a wooden sword knocks the wind out of you and leaves a bruise the size of a dinner plate. Getting hit on the arm or leg makes your whole limb go numb and tingly. A blow to the head, even a glancing one, makes your ears ring and your vision go a bit fuzzy. You're wearing some padding and a helmet during sparring, but it's minimal. The helmets are heavy and stifling. You can barely see out of the eye slots and they turn your head into an oven. Sweat pours down your face and stings your eyes. The trainers are mostly retired gladiators or ex-soldiers, and they have no sympathy for you whatsoever. They've been through it, and they expect you to get through it without complaining. Complaining gets you extra drills or a smack. They'll critique everything. Your stance is wrong, your grip is wrong, your footwork is sloppy, you're too slow, you're too hesitant. Even when you do something right, they'll find something else to pick on. It's relentless. The point is to break you down and rebuild you into a fighter. But mostly it just feels like being shouted at while you're tired and sore. There's a wooden post called a palace that you practice strikes on. It's just a thick wooden pole stuck in the ground, but you'll grow to hate it. You spend hours hitting it with your wooden sword, over and over until your hands are raw and your arms are jelly. The impact jolts up your arm every single time. Thwack, thwack, thwack. The noise echoes around the training yard. Everyone's doing it at once, so it's a constant cacophony of wood hitting wood. Your ears ring with it. The post doesn't fight back, but it also doesn't give. It's just there, taking your abuse and making your whole body ache. Strength training is part of the routine. lifting heavy stones, carrying logs, pushing weighted carts across the yard. It's like the worst gym session imaginable, except there's no motivational music or water breaks or encouraging personal trainer. Just a grumpy ex-gladiator yelling at you to do it again. Your muscles burn and shake. Your back feels like it's about to give out. You're drenched in perspiration, and it's dripping off your nose and chin. The salt stings your eyes and makes everything blurry. By the time training finishes for the day, you're absolutely shattered. Your legs wobble when you walk. Your arms hang uselessly by your sides. Every part of you throbs. You're covered in sand, sweat and bruises in various stages of development. Some are fresh and tender, others are a few days old and turning interesting colours. Yellow, purple, green, like a revolting rainbow across your skin. You shuffle back to your cell like an old man, even though you're in theoretically peak physical condition. Lunches? You guessed it, more barley. Maybe some lentils this time, maybe a chunk of bread if you're lucky. The bread is dense and chewy and tastes faintly of mould if it's been sitting around for a few days. You don't care. You're so hungry you'd eat the table. You shovel it down, barely tasting it, and drink copious amounts of water. Your hands shake from exhaustion as you eat. Conversation is minimal. Everyone's too tired. Just the sound of chewing, slurping, and the occasional groan when someone moves the wrong way and aggravates an injury. After lunch, you get a rest period, but it's not exactly restful. You're supposed to recover, but you're too sore to sleep properly. You lie on your terrible straw mattress and stare at the ceiling, feeling every single bruise and ache. Your muscles twitch randomly, your feet throb. If you do manage to doze off, you'll wake up 40 minutes later, even stiffer than before. Getting up after a rest is harder than getting up in the morning. Your body is seized up, you creak and groan like an old door. The food situation deserves more attention because it's such a constant low-level misery. The Romans have this idea that gladiators should eat a mostly vegetarian diet heavy in barley and beans. They think it builds a layer of fat over your muscles that protects you, which is partially true but also means you feel sluggish and bloated a lot of the time. Modern athletes eat balanced diets with protein and vitamins and all sorts of carefully planned nutrition. You get porridge, and beans, and occasionally some vegetables that are so overcooked they've lost any nutritional value and most of their structural integrity. They're just mush. Meat is rare. When you do get it, it's the cheapest cuts of the cheapest animals. Gristly, fatty, tough bits that take forever to chew. It might be goat or pork or something unidentifiable. It's boiled into submission with some herbs if you're lucky. The taste is aggressively bland. You'd think meat would be a treat, but honestly, after chewing the same rubbery chunk for 5 minutes, you start to miss the simplicity of porridge. At least porridge doesn't fight back. The wine you get is called posca, which is vinegar wine mixed with water and sometimes herbs. It sounds fancy, but it absolutely isn't. It's sour and slightly bitter, and it's supposed to be refreshing and good for you. Maybe it is, but it tastes like someone wrung out a dirty cloth into a cup. You drink it because water isn't always safe, and at least the vinegar kills some of the nasty stuff. It does quench your thirst, but it also makes your mouth feel weird and puckered. You get used to it, the same way you get used to everything else, which is to say you don't really, you just stop complaining. Meal times are chaotic. Dozens of men all trying to get their food at once. There's a queue, sort of, but it's more like a scrum. You grab a bowl, you get your slop ladled into it, you find a spot on the bench. If you're too slow, you get stuck at the end of the table near the smell of the latrines. If you're too polite, someone bigger will shove past you and you'll be waiting forever. You learn to be assertive without being aggressive enough to start a fight, because fighting outside the arena means punishment, and punishment means extra drills or no food. The bowls and spoons are communal and barely washed. They're rinsed in a bucket of water that gets murkier as the day goes on. By dinner time, the bucket looks like a swamp. Your bowl will have remnants of the last person's meal crusted onto the side. You scrape it off with your thumb and hope for the best. Food hygiene is not a Roman strong point. You'll get stomach aches fairly regularly, and digestive issues are just part of life. Everyone's dealing with it, which makes the latrine situation even more horrendous during certain times of the day. There's no variety. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner are all variations on the same theme. Grain, beans, occasional vegetables, rare meat. Day after day after day, you fantasize about food, proper food. Roast chicken, fresh bread with butter, fruit that's actually ripe and sweet, cheese that doesn't taste like feet. In the arena, wealthy spectators are eating snacks and delicacies while they watch you fight. They're munching on pastries and roasted nuts, and you can sometimes smell it wafting down. It's torture. You're constantly hungry, but also constantly full. It's a weird contradiction. The food is so starchy and heavy that it sits in your stomach like a rock, but it's also so unsatisfying that you never feel properly nourished. You're always slightly peckish and also slightly queasy. Your energy levels are all over the place. Sometimes you feel strong, other times you feel like you're wading through treacle. The diet does build muscle because you're eating a lot of calories and working out constantly, but it's not pleasant. The cooks are not culinary experts. They're just men assigned to boil large quantities of grain and beans in big pots over fires. The kitchens are hot, smoky, and smell of old cooking water that's been reused too many times. Everything's slightly charred or slightly underdone. Sometimes there's a bit of ash in your porridge from the fire. You eat it anyway. Complaining does nothing. Everyone's in the same boat, or the same bowl, so to speak. Occasionally there's a feast day or a celebration and the food is slightly better. Maybe some actual seasoning. Maybe some honey. It's like a glimpse of what life could be if you weren't a gladiator. And then the next day, you're back to barley and beans, and the memory of that one decent meal mocks you. You also have to eat a lot. Training burns a huge amount of energy, and you need the calories to keep going. So even when you're sick of the food, even when the sight of another bowl of porridge makes you want to weep, you have to shovel it down. You eat until you're uncomfortably full because you don't know when you'll get a proper break, and you need the fuel. It's joyless eating. Mechanical. Spoon to bowl, bowl to mouth, chew, swallow, repeat. Table manners are non-existent. Men eat with their mouths open, slurp, belch loudly, and wipe their hands on their tunics. The noise is disgusting. Wet chewing sounds, slurping, gulping, grunting. It's like being in a pig trough. You become part of it. You stop caring. You're too tired to care. You slurp your Posca and wipe your mouth with the back of your hand and burp along with everyone else. The seating arrangements are based on a sort of unspoken hierarchy. The best fighters, the veterans, the favourites, they sit closer to the slightly less disgusting end of the table. Newcomers and less successful gladiators sit further down where it smells worse, and the benches are more wobbly. If you lose a lot of fights, you might end up right at the end near the door to the latrines, which is social death as well as nasal death. There's always someone who eats too fast and chokes, coughing, spluttering, going red in the face while someone thumps them on the back. It's dramatic and annoying, and it happens at least once a meal. There's also always someone who's got a stomach issue and has to leave halfway through and rush to the latrines. Nobody comments. It's too common. Let's talk about the absolute lack of personal space. You're never alone. Ever. From the moment you wake up to the moment you fall asleep, you're surrounded by other men. In your cell, in the training yard, in the eating area, in the baths, in the latrines. There's always someone there. Someone snoring, someone scratching, someone talking, someone existing loudly near you. If you're an introvert, this is your personal nightmare. Even if you're an extrovert, it gets old fast. Your cellmate, assuming you just have one and not several, becomes the person you know better than anyone else, and also the person you fantasize about escaping from. You know exactly how he snores, and he snores like a broken cart. You know what he smells like at every time of day. Morning staleness, midday sweat, evening unwashed fatigue. You know his habits, his routines, his annoying little quirks. Maybe he picks his toenails and flicks them across the room. Maybe he talks in his sleep. Maybe he grinds his teeth. Maybe he has a habit of spitting when he talks. You know all of it, and you can't get away from it. Arguments are inevitable. Petty, stupid arguments about nothing. He's taking up too much space on the sleeping bench. He's snoring too loud. He borrowed your spare tunic without asking. He ate the last piece of bread that you were saving. These arguments can't escalate into real fights because that means punishment. So instead you have these tense, hissed conversations where you're both furious but trying not to actually start something. It's exhausting in a completely different way to physical training. The noise is constant. Stone walls and corridors echo everything. Footsteps, voices, coughs, snores, the scrape of benches, the clatter of bowls, the thud of wooden weapons in the training yard. It all bounces around and amplifies. There's no soft furnishings to absorb sound. No carpets, no curtains, no upholstered anything. Just hard stone and wood. Your ears never get a rest. At night, it's a symphony of snoring from multiple cells. It's like sleeping in a cave full of bears. Some men snore in rhythm, others are offbeat. It's chaotic and maddening. Privacy for personal matters is impossible. If you need to adjust your tunic, scratch an awkward itch, or deal with any bodily function, someone's probably watching, or at least nearby. You lose all sense of modesty very quickly. Everyone's seen everything. It stops being embarrassing and starts being just a fact of life. You're all human. You're all dealing with the same uncomfortable reality, and there's no point being shy about it. The communal bathing area is another exercise in forced togetherness. It's a room with a big basin or a courtyard with a fountain, and everyone washes at the same time. You're standing there, basically naked or in a loincloth, splashing cold water on yourself while surrounded by other equally naked men. No one's looking because everyone's too busy being cold and miserable, but it's still deeply unglamorous. The water's murky by the time everyone's had a go. You're essentially rinsing yourself in communal grime soup. Someone always tries to have a conversation while you're bathing. You're standing there, shivering, water dripping off you, and someone wants to chat about the weather, or training, or some rumor they heard. You can't really escape, so you nod along and make non-committal noises while trying to scrub yourself as quickly as possible. The cold makes everything shrink and you just want to get it over with and get back to your slightly warmer cell. The social dynamics are complicated. There's alliances and rivalries and friendships and grudges. You're living in close quarters with men who you might have to fight in the arena at some point. That makes every interaction a bit weird. You're friendly with someone, you train together, you share meals, and then one day you might be told you're fighting them for the entertainment of thousands of people. It's a strange tension that never fully goes away. Some gladiators form genuine friendships. They look out for each other, share tips, help each other train. It makes the whole experience slightly more bearable. Having someone to complain to, someone who understands, someone to share a joke with when things are particularly grim. But even those friendships are tinged with the knowledge that this life is temporary and precarious. People get injured, people lose fights, people are sold to other schools. Nothing's permanent. Others are loners and keep to themselves as much as possible. They do what they're told, train hard, eat, sleep, and avoid interaction. It's a survival strategy. Don't get attached, don't get involved, just get through each day. It's lonely, but in some ways it's simpler. No drama, no obligations, no disappointments. There's also always a few men who are just unpleasant. Bullies, loudmouths, braggarts. Every group has them. They make everything worse. They'll mock you if you mess up in training. They'll steal your food. They'll start arguments for fun. The trainers don't care as long as it doesn't disrupt training or cause injuries. It's your problem to deal with. You learn to avoid them, or stand up to them, or just endure them. The boredom is crushing. Modern people are used to constant stimulation. Phones, computers, music, television, books, something. You have none of that. When you're not training or eating or sleeping, you're just sitting around. Some men carve little figures out of wood or bone if they can get materials. Some gamble. Some tell stories. Some sit in silence and stare at the wall. Time moves incredibly slowly. An afternoon of rest feels like 3 days. You've got nothing to do and nowhere to go and no way to make the time pass faster. You think a lot, too much, about your life, your choices, what you're doing here. If you're a slave, you think about freedom and whether you'll ever earn it. If you're a volunteer, you think about the money you were promised and whether it's worth it. Spoiler, it isn't. You think about people you knew before, family, friends. You wonder what they're doing. You wonder if they think about you. You get melancholy staring at the ceiling of your cell, listening to your cellmate scratch himself. Now, let's talk about the medical situation, which is slightly better than you'd expect, but still absolutely terrible by modern standards. There is a kind of doctor attached to the ludus. He's not a doctor in the modern sense. He's more like a very experienced amateur who's learned by doing. He knows how to stitch wounds, set bones, and apply various poultices and ointments. He keeps you alive and functional, which is all the Lannister cares about. You're an investment after all. A living asset. If you're too broken to fight, you're not making anyone money. The medical room smells strange. Herbs, vinegar, something earthy and musty. It's not comforting. There's a bench for patients, some shelves with jars and bundles of dried plants, and tools that look vaguely threatening. The doctor is usually brisk and unsympathetic. You're not his first injured gladiator of the day, and you won't be the last. He'll poke at your injury, mutter something in Latin, and then do what needs doing. If you're lucky, it helps. If you're unlucky, it hurts a lot, and then maybe helps. Bruises are treated with poultices made from various plants. The poultice is a paste that smells pungent and herbal, and it's spread on a cloth and slapped onto your bruise. It's cold and slimy, and the smell lingers on your skin for days. Does it help? Maybe. It's hard to tell. The bruise still hurts and still goes through its rainbow of colours, but maybe it does it slightly faster. You're told to keep the poultice on for a few hours, which means walking around with a smelly cloth tied to your ribs or your thigh, dripping slightly, and everyone knows you've been to see the doctor. Sprains and strains are bound with linen strips soaked in something astringent. The binding is tight, and it's supposed to support the joint and reduce swelling. It does help actually, but it's also restrictive and uncomfortable. You can't move properly. If it's your wrist, you can't grip things. If it's your ankle, you limp around like a wounded animal. The trainer might give you lighter duties, or he might just tell you to work through it. Pain is temporary, glory is forever, or some such nonsense. Broken bones are a serious issue. The doctor sets them, which is an excruciating process. He'll pull and twist until the bone is back in alignment, and you'll be gritting your teeth and trying not to scream. Then it's splintered with wooden slats and bound tightly. You're out of action for weeks, possibly months depending on the break. During that time, you're dead weight. You still have to eat the same food, take up the same space, but you're not earning anything. The Lannister is not happy. The other gladiators avoid you because injury is unlucky and contagious by association, or so the superstition goes. Cuts and scrapes are cleaned with vinegar or wine, which stings like fury, and then sometimes stitched if they're deep enough. The stitches are done with a needle and thread, just like sewing cloth, except it's your skin. The doctor doesn't use anesthetic because that's not really a thing yet. You just have to sit there and endure it. The thread pulls through your skin with a horrible tugging sensation. You can feel every stitch. Afterwards it's bandaged and you're told to keep it clean, which is almost impossible given the general filth of your surroundings. Infections are a real danger. Even a small cut can get infected if dirt gets in it, and dirt is everywhere. An infected wound gets red, hot, swollen and angry looking. It throbs and aches. The doctor will clean it out, which involves scraping away the bad tissue, and it's as awful as it sounds. Then more vinegar, more poultices, more bandages. If the infection is bad, you're in real trouble. Fever, chills, delirium. You lie in your cell, shivering and sweating at the same time, and hope you pull through. Some men don't. Dental problems are a nightmare. There's no such thing as a dentist. If you get a toothache, you suffer through it. If it gets bad enough, the tooth might be pulled, which is done with a pair of pliers and a lot of brute force. No numbing, no pain relief, just someone gripping your head and yanking. The pain is indescribable. Sharp, intense, radiating through your whole skull. Afterwards, your mouth tastes like metal and you can't eat properly for days. Your jaw aches and the gap where the tooth was is a constant annoyance. The general wear and tear on your body accumulates. Every training session adds a little more damage. Your joints start to ache even when you're not moving. Your knees creak when you stand up. Your shoulders grind and click. You're developing arthritis and you're not even old. Your hands are calloused and scarred from gripping weapons. Your feet are a mess of calluses, blisters, and old blisters that have turned into more calluses. You look down at your body and it's covered in marks. Scars, bruises, scrapes, bite marks from fleas, rashes from your itchy tunic. Rashes are common. The combination of sweat, dirt, rough fabric, and close living quarters means your skin is constantly irritated. You get rashes in places you didn't know you could get rashes. Under your arms, around your waist where your belt sits, between your thighs from chafing. They're red, itchy, sometimes painful. You try to wash them, but the water's cold and the soap is harsh, and it doesn't really help. The doctor gives you some ointment that smells like old cheese and might or might not work. Lice are another joy. Head lice, body lice, they're everywhere. They spread from person to person like wildfire in the close quarters. You'll feel them crawling on your scalp, a ticklish, maddening sensation. Scratching doesn't help, it just makes your scalp raw. The treatment is to shave your head, which everyone does anyway because long hair is impractical. But even with a shaved head, you can still get lice. They get into your tunic, your bedding, everywhere. You have to boil your clothes to kill them, but that's a whole production, and the clothes are never quite the same afterwards. Your immune system is constantly fighting something. Colds, coughs, stomach bugs, mysterious fevers. Living in close quarters means illness spreads rapidly. One person gets sick, and within days half the ludus is sniffling and coughing. There's no sick leave. You still train, you still eat, you still do everything, just while feeling like death. You're congested, your head's pounding, your throat's raw, and you're expected to swing a wooden sword for 3 hours. It's misery. The doctor gives you herbal teas for illnesses. They taste foul, bitter, earthy, like drinking boiled weeds, which is essentially what they are. You hold your nose and gulp them down and hope they do something. Sometimes they help, sometimes they don't. Sometimes you get better because your body fights off the illness, not because of the tea, but the doctor takes credit anyway. Let's discuss the whole business of actually fighting in the arena, which is the bit everyone thinks about, but which is actually a tiny fraction of your time. Most of your life is training and waiting. The actual fights are rare, relatively speaking. Maybe a few times a year if you're successful and in demand. If you're new or not very good, maybe less. Each fight is a huge event in your life, but for the organizers and the crowd, you're just part of a day's entertainment. Before a fight, the atmosphere in the ludus changes. There's tension, nerves. The men who are scheduled to fight become quieter or louder depending on their personality. Some get very focused and withdrawn. Others get chatty and boisterous, covering their fear with bravado. You can see it in their eyes, though. Everyone's scared. Even the veterans, even the champions, they just hide it better. The night before a fight, you can't sleep. You lie on your terrible mattress and your mind races. You think about what could happen. You think about your opponent. You think about the crowd. You think about making a mistake. You think about winning and what that would feel like. You think about losing and what that would mean. Your stomach is in knots. You might feel nauseous. Some men actually are sick from the nerves. You hear someone in another cell retching quietly, and you feel a bit better knowing you're not the only one who's terrified. The morning of the fight, you're given a better breakfast. Actual meat, better bread, maybe some honey. It's supposed to be a treat, a final meal, but you can barely taste it. Your mouth is dry. Your throat is tight. You force it down because you need the energy, but it sits heavy in your stomach. Some men can't eat at all. They just push the food around their bowl and stare at nothing. You're taken to the arena in a cart, or you walk if it's close. The streets are busy. People are heading to the games. They're excited, chattering, buying snacks from vendors. It's a festival atmosphere. For them, it's entertainment. For you, it's life or death, or at least serious injury. The disconnect is surreal. You're sitting in a cart, armored up, trying to mentally prepare, and there's children running past laughing and someone selling roasted nuts, and the smell makes you feel sick. The holding area under the arena is dark and cool. Stone corridors, cells, the smell of damp and old sweat and fear. You're kept separate from your opponent. You can hear the crowd above, the roar of thousands of people, the stamp of feet, the noise of anticipation. It's incredibly loud even down here. The sound vibrates through the stone. Your heart is pounding. Your hands are shaking. You clench and unclench your fists to try to steady them. An attendant helps you with your armor. Real armor this time, not the training stuff. It's heavy and uncomfortable. A helmet that restricts your vision and hearing. A shield. A weapon. The weapon is real, sharp, deadly. The weight of it in your hand is different to the training sword. It's lighter, faster, but it feels significant. This is what you'll fight with. The attendant checks the straps, makes sure everything's secure, doesn't say much. He's done this 100 times. You're just another gladiator. You're given a few minutes to prepare. Some men pray, some pace, some sit in silence. You do whatever helps. The noise from above gets louder. The previous fight has finished. They're clearing the arena. You're next. An official comes to get you. It's time. Your stomach drops. Your legs feel weak. You stand up. The armor feels impossibly heavy now. You follow the official down the corridor towards the gate. The gate opens and light floods in. Bright, blinding sunlight. The noise hits you like a wall. The crowd is screaming, cheering, shouting. It's deafening. You walk out into the arena and the sand crunches under your feet. The space is huge, much bigger than the training yard. The stands rise up all around you, packed with people. Thousands of faces all looking at you. It's overwhelming. You feel very small and very exposed. The heat is intense. The sun beats down. You're already sweating inside your armor. The helmet traps the heat around your head. Sweat runs into your eyes. You blink it away. You spot your opponent on the other side of the arena. He looks huge. Or maybe he looks small. It's hard to tell. Your perception is all over the place. Adrenaline is surging through you. Everything feels sharp and vivid and also slightly unreal. There's a ceremony, an announcement. Someone important says something official. You barely hear it. The crowd cheers. You raise your weapon in acknowledgement. The crowd cheers louder. They love that. They love the spectacle. You and your opponent approach each other. You can see his eyes through his helmet. He's scared too, or angry, or focused. It's hard to read. The fight starts. It's fast and chaotic. Nothing like training. Your opponent is really trying to hurt you. You're really trying to hurt him. The wooden swords didn't prepare you for this. The clang of metal on metal. The impact that jolts up your arm. The sand shifting under your feet. The crowd roaring. It's sensory overload. You're operating on instinct and training. Barely thinking. Just reacting. Time does something weird. It feels like the fight lasts forever and also only a few seconds. You're hyper-aware of everything, and also everything's a blur. You feel the impact of his weapon on your shield. You feel your muscles straining. You hear your own breathing, ragged and loud inside your helmet. You smell the sand, the metal, your own fear sweat. Every sense is dialed up to maximum. If you win, the relief is indescribable. It crashes over you like a wave. You're alive. You did it. The crowd roars approval. You raise your weapon. You're shaking, exhausted, elated, traumatized, all at once. An attendant leads you out. Your legs barely work. The adrenaline is fading and you feel like a wrung-out cloth. You're taken back to the holding area. Someone gives you water. You drink it too fast and nearly choke. If you lose but survive, you're injured, humiliated, and lucky to be alive. The crowd might have shouted for mercy, or your opponent might have been instructed not to kill you. You're dragged or carried out. Everything hurts. You're bleeding, probably. The doctor will patch you up, but the psychological damage is worse than the physical. You lost in front of thousands of people. You'll have to live with that. The psychological toll of this life is enormous. Modern people have therapy, support systems, ways to process trauma. You have nothing. You're expected to just deal with it. Gladiators are supposed to be tough, stoic, fearless. Showing fear or weakness gets you mocked or punished. So you bottle everything up. All the fear, the anger, the sadness, the frustration. It sits inside you and festers. The constant threat of death or serious injury wears you down. It's not just the fights. It's training accidents. It's infections that turn deadly. It's the general precariousness of your existence. You can't plan for the future because you don't know if you have one. You can't make long-term goals. You just survive day to day. It's exhausting in a way that's hard to explain. Mental exhaustion that's worse than physical exhaustion. You lose your sense of identity. If you were someone before, a person with a life and a name and a history that fades, you become your role. You're a gladiator. That's all. Your old life feels like a dream. Did you really used to do something else? It's hard to remember. The routine of the ludus, the constant physicality, The narrow focus on survival and fighting, it all grinds away at who you used to be. Some men cope by becoming very hard and detached. They shut down emotionally. They don't make friends, don't care about anything, just go through the motions. It's a defense mechanism. If you don't care, you can't be hurt. But it's also a kind of living death. You're alive, but you're not really living. You're just existing, waiting for it to end. Others cope with aggression. They pick fights, they're difficult, they channel everything into anger. It gives them energy, a sense of control. But it also makes them unpopular and exhausting to be around. They're always on edge, always ready to explode. The trainers have to watch them carefully because they're a liability. Some men turn to superstition and ritual. They develop elaborate pre-fight routines, saying certain words, touching certain objects, performing certain actions in a specific order. It's a way of feeling like they have some control over the uncontrollable. If they do the ritual, they'll be safe. Of course it doesn't actually work, but it provides comfort. Humans need to feel like they have agency, even if it's an illusion. Religious belief is common. Praying to various gods, making offerings, wearing amulets. Mars, the god of war, is popular, obviously. Fortuna, the goddess of luck. Hercules, because he's strong and heroic. Men pray for protection, for victory, for survival. Does it help? Who knows? But it gives them something to hold on to, a sense that they're not completely alone, that there's some higher power that might be looking out for them. Homesickness is a constant ache for some. If you had a family, a home, a life before this, you miss it desperately. You lie awake at night, thinking about it, wondering what they're doing, whether they miss you, whether they've forgotten you. If you're a slave, you might never see them again. If you're a volunteer, you might, if you survive long enough and earn enough money. But it's a distant hope. The boredom, which we've mentioned, also contributes to the psychological strain. Humans aren't meant to have nothing to do. We need stimulation, purpose, variety. The endless routine of the ludus, the repetitive training, the waiting, it dulls your mind. You feel like you're going slowly mad. Some men talk to themselves. Some develop odd habits and tics. It's a coping mechanism for the lack of mental stimulation. Relationships, friendships, they're complicated by the knowledge that this could all end at any moment. You become close to someone, and then they're killed in the arena, or sold, or they just disappear. The grief is real, but you're not allowed to show it. You're supposed to move on. So you grieve internally, silently, and it adds to the weight you're carrying. There's also a strange kind of camaraderie, though. You're all in this together. You all understand what it's like in a way that no outsider ever could. That shared suffering creates bonds. When things are really bad, when you're at your lowest, someone might sit with you, not saying anything, just being there. It's a small kindness, but it means everything. The trainers and the lanista don't care about your mental state as long as you can fight. If you're too broken mentally to perform, you're useless. There's no support, no understanding. You're told to toughen up, to focus, to stop being weak. Mental health isn't a concept that exists yet. You're just expected to cope. Some men don't cope. They give up. They become listless, stop trying, go through the motions, but with no spirit left. They're dead inside already. When they finally die for real, in the arena or from illness or accident, it's almost a relief. They were gone long before their body stopped. Others become desperate for any kind of escape. If you're a slave, you dream of freedom, earning it through victories, being granted it, buying it somehow. It's what keeps you going. The thought that one day, maybe, you'll be free. If you're a volunteer, you dream of completing your contract, getting your money, getting out, starting over somewhere else, forgetting this ever happened. But the reality is that even if you do get out, you're never really free of it. The memories, the trauma, the damage to your body and mind, it stays with you. Men who survive and retire are haunted. They have nightmares. They startle at loud noises. They can't enjoy crowds because crowds mean the arena. They're marked forever by what they went through. The social stigma is another issue. Gladiators are famous but also looked down upon. Your entertainment, you're low class. Respectable people might admire your skill, but they wouldn't want you marrying their daughter. You're tainted by association with death and violence. Even if you become a champion, even if you're celebrated, there's always that undercurrent of disdain. You're not quite human in the eyes of many Romans. You're a spectacle. Let's talk about the reality of the arena itself, the physical space where all this happens. It's not just a big empty circle. It's a complex, carefully designed structure built for maximum spectacle. The Colosseum in Rome is the most famous, but there are amphitheatres all over the empire. Some are grand stone structures, others are more modest, but they all serve the same purpose: entertainment through violence. The arena floor is covered in sand, which is practical and symbolic. Practical because sand absorbs mess and provides decent footing. Symbolic because the Latin word for sand is harina, which is where we get the word arena. The sand gets raked between events to cover up the evidence of what just happened. It's always fresh looking on the surface, but if you dig down a bit, it's all stained and grim underneath. Under the arena floor is a whole network of tunnels, rooms, and mechanical systems. There are cages for animals, holding cells for gladiators, storage for props and equipment. There are pulleys and lifts that can raise things up through trapdoors in the arena floor. A wild animal can suddenly appear in the middle of the sand, which is very dramatic and also terrifying if you're the gladiator who wasn't expecting it. The whole thing is like a theatre backstage area, except the performance involves actual danger. The stands rise up steeply all around. They're divided into sections based on social class. The important people, senators, wealthy citizens, they sit close to the front in cushioned seats with the best view. Further back and higher up are the regular citizens. At the very top, standing room only, are the poorest people and slaves who've been given the afternoon off. Everyone can see, everyone can participate in the spectacle, but your view and comfort depend entirely on your social status. The noise from a full amphitheatre is incredible. Tens of thousands of people all talking, shouting, cheering, booing. When something exciting happens, the roar is like a physical force. It echoes around the stone structure and amplifies. You can feel it in your chest. If you're down on the arena floor looking up at all those faces, all that noise directed at you, it's overwhelming. Some gladiators feed off it, use it for energy. Others find it terrifying and disorienting. The crowd is not polite. They're there to be entertained, and they're vocal about it. If you're doing well, they cheer and chant your name. If you're boring them, they boo and jeer. If you make a mistake, they laugh. They have no sympathy. You're not a person to them, you're a performer. They've paid for a show and they expect value. If the fight isn't exciting enough, they get restless and start throwing things. Fruit peel, nutshells, occasionally something heavier. Getting hit by a thrown apple core while you're trying to fight is both painful and humiliating. The seating area smells of sweat, food and humanity packed too tightly together. People are eating snacks, drinking wine, getting increasingly drunk and rowdy as the day goes on. The later fights often have a more chaotic crowd. They're louder, less predictable, more demanding. They want drama, they want excitement, they want to see something memorable. You're there to provide it. The sun is brutal. There's awnings that can be pulled across to provide some shade for the spectators, but you're down on the sand with no protection. The sun beats down on your helmet and armor, turning you into a human oven. The sand reflects the heat back up at you. You're being cooked from both directions. The sweat is pouring off you before the fight even starts. Your mouth is parched. Your vision swims a bit from the heat. Trying to fight effectively in those conditions is incredibly hard. Between fights, there's entertainment. Musicians play. Announcements are made. Sometimes there's comedy acts or displays of skill. The crowd needs to be kept engaged between the main events. If you're waiting to fight, you can hear all this happening above you. The music, the laughter, the applause. It's surreal. You're about to risk your life and people are laughing at jokes and munching on snacks. The animals used in the arena are another element. Wild beasts imported from across the empire. Lions, bears, leopards, bulls. They're kept hungry and agitated to make them more aggressive for the show. Some events involve gladiators fighting animals, which is extremely dangerous and not really a fair fight. A hungry lion is faster and stronger than any human. Your only advantage is intelligence and weapons, but even then, it's a bad situation. The animals are as terrified as anyone. They're in a strange place, surrounded by noise, confused and angry. They don't want to be there either. When they're released into the arena, they're disoriented. Sometimes they don't even attack. They just try to hide or escape. The crowd boos. They paid to see violence. Eventually the animal gets provoked enough to fight, or it's killed anyway because it's not providing entertainment. The smell of the animals, the cages, the waste, it all contributes to the general aroma of the arena. Mixed with the sweat of gladiators, the smell of the crowd, the food vendors outside, it's a unique and unpleasant cocktail. After a full day of games, the whole area reeks. The stone absorbs the smell and it lingers for days. The arena is cleaned between events, sort of. Attendants come out and rake the sand, drag away any debris, make it look presentable for the next fight. But it's a quick job. They're not deep cleaning. They're just tidying up enough so the next event can happen. The sand is never truly clean. If you fall and get sand in your mouth, it tastes faintly of salt and something metallic and deeply unpleasant. The way fights are organized is designed for maximum drama. They're not random. Someone's decided who fights who, what type of gladiator against what type, what will make the best show. Two evenly matched fighters makes for a long, exciting fight. A mismatch might be quick, but brutal. Sometimes novelty acts are thrown in. Unusual weapons, unusual pairings, anything to keep the crowd interested. The sponsors, the people paying for the games, want to be remembered. They want the crowd to associate their name with a great spectacle. So there's pressure to make it impressive. More fights, more animals, more elaborate staging. The gladiators are just tools to achieve that goal. Your individual life or death is less important than the overall show. The aftermath of the games, after all the fighting is done, the arena empties out. The crowd files out, still chattering and laughing, heading home or to taverns to discuss what they saw. The vendors pack up. The animals are returned to their cages or disposed of. The gladiators who survived are taken back to the ludus. The ones who didn't are carried out to a morgue area. The arena is left quiet and empty, the sand raked smooth, ready for the next time. The equipment you use is specific to your type of gladiator, and none of it is comfortable. There are different classes. each with their own armor and weapons, and you don't get to choose. You're assigned a type based on your build, your skills, or just whatever the Lannister thinks will sell tickets. The Murmillo has a big rectangular shield and a sword, plus a helmet with a fish crest on top. The Thraex has a smaller square shield and a curved blade. The Retiarius has a net and a trident, and barely any armor, which sounds exciting until you realize you're essentially fighting in your underwear. The helmet is the worst part of any outfit. It's heavy, made of bronze or iron, and it sits on your head like a metal bucket. The eye holes are small, which limits your vision dramatically. You can see what's directly in front of you, and that's about it. Peripheral vision is gone. You have to turn your whole head to look around, which is slow and awkward. The inside of the helmet is lined with padding, but the padding is minimal and gets compressed quickly. The metal sits close to your skull. When you get hit, and you will get hit, the impact rings through the helmet and makes your ears buzz and your head spin. The helmet also muffles sound. You can hear things, but it's all dampened and echoey. The crowd noise becomes a dull roar instead of distinct voices. Your own breathing is loud and harsh inside the helmet. If your opponent says something, you probably won't hear it. This auditory isolation is disorienting. You feel cut off from the world, trapped in your own metal bubble. The heat inside the helmet builds up quickly. Your face is dripping with perspiration within minutes. It runs into your eyes and stings. You can't wipe it away because you're holding weapons and shield. The shield is heavy and cumbersome. If you've got a big rectangular one, it's solid wood covered in leather and reinforced with metal edges. It protects most of your body when you hold it correctly, but holding it correctly for more than a few minutes makes your arms scream. The shield boss, the metal bit in the center, can be used offensively to bash your opponent, but that means getting close, which is risky. The shield gets battered during a fight. Dents, scratches, chunks taken out of the edge. By the end of a fight, it looks like it's been through a war, which it has, a very small personal war. The sword, if you're using one, is short and broad. It's designed for stabbing more than slashing. The Romans love efficiency, and stabbing is efficient. The blade is sharp, properly sharp, not like the blunt training swords. The first time you hold a real sword, the weight of it is different, lighter than the training version, which should be good, but it also feels more dangerous. This weapon can actually kill someone. That knowledge sits in your hand along with the grip. Body armor varies wildly depending on your type. Some gladiators get a manica, which is a padded and segmented arm guard that protects your sword arm. It's made of layers of fabric or leather with metal scales sewn on. It's stiff and restrictive. Your arm can't bend naturally. Reaching or extending fully is difficult, but it will stop a blade from cutting you probably, so you put up with the restriction. Leg guards, called greaves, protect your shins. They're metal, strapped on tight, and they clang when you move. They also heat up in the sun and burn your skin if they shift. If you're a Retiarius, you get almost nothing. A shoulder guard on one side, an arm guard, and that's it. The rest of you is exposed. Bare chest, bare legs, just a loincloth for modesty. The logic is that you're fast and agile, and you don't need armor because you won't get hit. The reality is that you feel extremely naked and vulnerable. Every part of you is a target. One good hit and you're done. The net is your main defense. You throw it over your opponent, tangle them up, then move in with the trident, in theory. In practice, throwing a net accurately while someone's trying to kill you is remarkably difficult. The trident is a 3-pronged spear. It's good for jabbing and keeping distance. The prongs can catch on armor or shields, which is useful for pulling your opponent off balance. But if you miss, if the trident gets stuck in something, you're struggling to pull it free and you're defenseless. The trident also gets heavy after holding it extended for a while. Your shoulders and arms burn from keeping it pointed at your opponent. Breaking in new equipment is painful. New sandals give you fresh blisters. A new shield has a stiff grip that hasn't molded to your hand yet. New arm guards have rough edges that chafe. Everything needs wearing in, softening up, adjusting. You do this during training, so by the time you fight for real, the equipment feels like an extension of you, but it never feels comfortable. It always feels like you're wearing someone else's badly fitting clothes made of metal and wood. Maintaining the equipment is part of your daily routine. Leather needs oiling, or it cracks. Metal needs cleaning, or it rusts. Straps need checking for wear. Wood needs inspecting for splits. You spend time in the evening, when training is done, sitting in the courtyard with the other gladiators, all of you working on your gear, rubbing oil into leather, scraping rust off metal with a rough stone, stitching up tears in padding. It's monotonous work, but necessary. Faulty equipment in the arena could kill you. The Lannister provides the equipment, but it's not high quality unless you're a star gladiator who brings in lots of money. Everyone else gets the standard issue gear that's been used by multiple gladiators before you. The helmet's padding is compressed and stained with previous owner's sweat. The shield has old repairs visible if you look closely. The sword might have small nicks in the blade. It's functional, barely, and that's all you get. If you do well, if you win fights and become popular, you might get better equipment. Fancier helmets with decorative crests, shields with painted designs, armor that actually fits properly. It's a status symbol as much as practical gear. The crowd recognizes good equipment. They know you're a successful gladiator if you're wearing the fancy stuff. It adds to your reputation, which can help you survive because the crowd is more likely to show mercy to a favorite. Some gladiators get superstitious about their equipment. This is my lucky helmet. This is my winning sword. They refuse to use anything else. If something breaks or gets too damaged, they're genuinely distressed. The trainers think it's ridiculous, but they allow it because a confident gladiator fights better than an anxious one. So, you end up with men performing little rituals with their gear, touching a specific part of the shield 3 times before a fight, saying a prayer while strapping on the greaves. Whatever helps. The equipment you use is specific to your type of gladiator, and none of it is comfortable. There are different classes, each with their own armor and weapons, and you don't get to choose. You're assigned a type based on your build, your skills, or just whatever the Lannister thinks will sell tickets. The Mamillo has a big rectangular shield and a sword, plus a helmet with a fish crest on top. The Thraex has a smaller square shield and a curved blade. The Retiarius has a net and a trident, and barely any armor, which sounds exciting until you realize you're essentially fighting in your underwear. The helmet is the worst part of any outfit. It's heavy, made of bronze or iron, and it sits on your head like a metal bucket. The eye holes are small, which limits your vision dramatically. You can see what's directly in front of you, and that's about it. Peripheral vision is gone. You have to turn your whole head to look around, which is slow and awkward. The inside of the helmet is lined with padding, but the padding is minimal and gets compressed quickly. The metal sits close to your skull. When you get hit, and you will get hit, the impact rings through the helmet and makes your ears buzz and your head spin. The helmet also muffles sound. You can hear things, but it's all dampened and echoey. The crowd noise becomes a dull roar instead of distinct voices. Your own breathing is loud and harsh inside the helmet. If your opponent says something, you probably won't hear it. This auditory isolation is disorienting. You feel cut off from the world, trapped in your own metal bubble. The heat inside the helmet builds up quickly. Your face is dripping with perspiration within minutes. It runs into your eyes and stings. You can't wipe it away because you're holding weapons and shield. The shield is heavy and cumbersome. If you've got a big rectangular one, it's solid wood covered in leather and reinforced with metal edges. It protects most of your body when you hold it correctly, but holding it correctly for more than a few minutes makes your arms scream. The shield boss, the metal bit in the center, can be used offensively to bash your opponent, but that means getting close, which is risky. The shield gets battered during a fight. Dents, scratches, chunks taken out of the edge. By the end of a fight, it looks like it's been through a war, which it has, a very small personal war. The sword, if you're using one, is short and broad. It's designed for stabbing more than slashing. The Romans love efficiency, and stabbing is efficient. The blade is sharp, properly sharp, not like the blunt training swords. The first time you hold a real sword, the weight of it is different, lighter than the training version, which should be good, but it also feels more dangerous. This weapon can actually kill someone. That knowledge sits in your hand along with the grip. Body armor varies wildly depending on your type. Some gladiators get a manica, which is a padded and segmented arm guard that protects your sword arm. It's made of layers of fabric or leather with metal scales sewn on. It's stiff and restrictive. Your arm can't bend naturally. Reaching or extending fully is difficult, but it will stop a blade from cutting you probably, so you put up with the restriction. Leg guards, called greaves, protect your shins. They're metal, strapped on tight, and they clang when you move. They also heat up in the sun and burn your skin if they shift. If you're a retiarius, you get almost nothing. A shoulder guard on one side, an arm guard, and that's it. The rest of you is exposed. Bare chest, bare legs, just a loincloth for modesty. The logic is that you're fast and agile, and you don't need armor because you won't get hit. The reality is that you feel extremely naked and vulnerable. Every part of you is a target. One good hit and you're done. The net is your main defense. You throw it over your opponent, tangle them up, then move in with the trident. In theory. In practice, throwing a net accurately while someone's trying to kill you is remarkably difficult. The trident is a 3-pronged spear. It's good for jabbing and keeping distance. The prongs can catch on armor or shields, which is useful for pulling your opponent off balance. But if you miss, if the trident gets stuck in something, you're struggling to pull it free and you're defenseless. The trident also gets heavy after holding it extended for a while. Your shoulders and arms burn from keeping it pointed at your opponent. Breaking in new equipment is painful. New sandals give you fresh blisters. A new shield has a stiff grip that hasn't molded to your hand yet. New arm guards have rough edges that chafe. Everything needs wearing in, softening up, adjusting. You do this during training, so by the time you fight for real, the equipment feels like an extension of you, but it never feels comfortable. It always feels like you're wearing someone else's badly fitting clothes made of metal and wood. Maintaining the equipment is part of your daily routine. Leather needs oiling or it cracks. Metal needs cleaning or it rusts. Straps need checking for wear. Wood needs inspecting for splits. You spend time in the evening, when training is done, sitting in the courtyard with the other gladiators, all of you working on your gear. Rubbing oil into leather, scraping rust off metal with a rough stone, stitching up tears in padding. It's monotonous work, but necessary. Faulty equipment in the arena could kill you. The Lanista provides the equipment, but it's not high quality unless you're a star gladiator who brings in lots of money. Everyone else gets the standard issue gear that's been used by multiple gladiators before you. The helmet's padding is compressed and stained with previous owner's sweat. The shield has old repairs visible if you look closely. The sword might have small nicks in the blade. It's functional, barely, and that's all you get. If you do well, if you win fights and become popular, You might get better equipment. Fancier helmets with decorative crests, shields with painted designs, armor that actually fits properly. It's a status symbol as much as practical gear. The crowd recognizes good equipment. They know you're a successful gladiator if you're wearing the fancy stuff. It adds to your reputation, which can help you survive because the crowd is more likely to show mercy to a favorite. Some gladiators get superstitious about their equipment. This is my lucky helmet. This is my winning sword. They refuse to use anything else. If something breaks or gets too damaged, they're genuinely distressed. The trainers think it's ridiculous, but they allow it because a confident gladiator fights better than an anxious one. So you end up with men performing little rituals with their gear, touching a specific part of the shield 3 times before a fight, saying a prayer while strapping on the greaves. Whatever helps. The social hierarchy within the ludus is complex and constantly shifting. At the top are the veteran gladiators who've survived multiple fights and won most of them. They get respect, better sleeping spots, first pick of food, and the trainers listen to them. They've earned their status through survival and skill. They walk with confidence because they've proven themselves. Everyone else looks up to them or resents them depending on personality. Below the veterans are the mid-level fighters, men who've had a few fights, won some, lost some, still alive. They're competent but not spectacular. They're the bulk of the ludus population. They train hard, follow the rules, hope to move up the ranks. They're neither impressive nor embarrassing, just solid, workmanlike fighters doing their job. At the bottom are the newcomers and the failures, men who haven't fought yet, or who have fought and lost badly. They get the worst of everything. The lumpiest mattresses, the spots near the latrine, the smallest portions, the hardest training. The veterans haze them, not cruelly necessarily, but enough to establish the pecking order. Fetch this, carry that, clean up this mess. The newcomers do it, because that's how it works. Everyone went through it. There's also a separate category for the extremely popular gladiators, the crowd favorites. They might not even be the best fighters technically, but they have charisma, style, showmanship. The crowd loves them. They get special treatment because they bring in money. Better food, private cells sometimes, less grueling training schedules. The lanista pampers them because they're valuable assets. Other gladiators are jealous but also pragmatic. If the star gladiator does well, it reflects well on the whole ludus. Friendships form along these hierarchical lines usually. Veterans befriend other veterans. Newcomers bond with other newcomers over shared misery. Cross-rank friendships are rarer, but they happen. An experienced fighter might take a younger one under his wing, teach him tricks, give advice. It's a mentorship born of practicality, and maybe a bit of loneliness. Having someone to talk to makes the whole experience slightly less awful. Rivalries are inevitable when you've got dozens of competitive men living in close quarters. Someone thinks someone else is getting preferential treatment. Someone's jealous of someone's success. Someone just doesn't like someone's face. These rivalries simmer constantly. They can't boil over into actual violence because that's forbidden, so instead it's passive-aggressive nonsense. Stealing someone's spot at meals, talking loudly when they're trying to sleep, deliberately partnering with them roughly during sparring. The trainers play favourites, obviously. They're human. They like certain gladiators more than others. Maybe someone reminds them of themselves when they were younger. Maybe someone's just pleasant to be around. Those favourites get slightly better treatment, more patient instruction, fewer whacks with the stick, occasional words of encouragement. Everyone else notices and grumbles about it, but there's nothing to be done. The lanista himself is a distant figure most of the time. He's running a business. He shows up for inspections, for important training sessions, for discussions about upcoming fights. He looks at you like your livestock, assessing your value. If you're making him money, he's pleased. If you're costing him money through losses or injuries, he is displeased. His displeasure means worse conditions, so everyone tries to stay in his good graces. There's an informal economy within the ludus. Men gamble on dice games, trading small items, doing favors for each other. If you've got something someone wants, maybe a better tunic or a decent belt or a lucky charm, you can trade it for something you need. Maybe extra food, maybe help with a task, maybe just company and conversation. It's a barter system born of the fact that nobody has actual money. Reputation is currency. If you're known as reliable, trustworthy, good in a fight, people want to associate with you. If you're known as a complainer, a coward, or lazy, people avoid you. Your reputation follows you everywhere in the ludus. It affects who wants to spar with you, who sits near you at meals, who will help you if you need it. Building a good reputation takes time and consistent behavior. Destroying it takes one mistake. The politics of who fights whom is murky and full of intrigue. The Lannister decides that he's influenced by requests from sponsors, by crowd preferences, by betting markets. If two gladiators hate each other, there might be pressure to have them fight for the drama. If two gladiators are friends, they might be deliberately kept apart or deliberately matched to see if they'll actually fight each other. It's manipulation for entertainment and profit. Sometimes you're told you'll be fighting a friend or training partner. That's a special kind of misery. You've shared meals with this person, trained together, maybe confided in them, and now you're supposed to try to hurt them while they try to hurt you, for the amusement of strangers. Some men can compartmentalize. It's just business, nothing personal. Others are deeply disturbed by it and fight half-heartedly, which annoys the crowd and the sponsors. There's occasional opportunities for gladiators to earn small privileges, win a particularly impressive fight, and maybe you get a day off training, show exceptional skill, and maybe you get a slightly better sleeping arrangement. These privileges are dangled like carrots to motivate you. They work, annoyingly. Even though you know you're being manipulated, the promise of a tiny improvement in your awful life is enough to make you try harder. Punishments for rule breaking are harsh and public. If you disobey a trainer, if you fight outside of sanctioned sparring, if you try to escape, the punishment is designed to humiliate and hurt. Extra training with no rest, cleaning the latrines for a week, reduced food rations, being put in chains. The worst punishment is being sent to fight in a clearly unwinnable match, essentially an execution dressed up as entertainment. Everyone knows what that means. It's a death sentence. Escape attempts are rare because they are almost impossible. The ludus is secure. High walls, locked gates, guards. Even if you got out, where would you go? If you're a slave, you're branded or marked. You'd be recognized and returned. If you're a volunteer, you've signed a contract. Breaking it has legal consequences. And if you're caught trying to escape, the punishment is so severe that most men don't even think about it seriously. There's a strange sort of pride in being a gladiator, though, despite everything. You're doing something most people can't do. You're facing death regularly and surviving. That takes courage, skill, and mental fortitude. Among yourselves, in the ludus, there's mutual respect for that. You're all in the same terrible situation, doing the same dangerous job. That shared experience creates a bond that outsiders don't understand. The visiting physicians and officials who come to inspect the ludus treat you like curiosities. They poke and prod, assess your fitness, make notes. You're examined like a horse before a race. Turn around, flex this, show me that. It's dehumanizing, but you're used to being treated as less than fully human. Your body is a tool, a weapon, a piece of property. That's how Rome sees you. Let's discuss the climate and weather, which Romans have absolutely no control over, and which makes your life substantially worse in various seasons. Summer in Rome and across the Mediterranean is brutally hot. The sun blazes down from a cloudless sky for months. The temperature in the training yard regularly exceeds what any modern person would consider safe for vigorous exercise. You're out there regardless, swinging weighted weapons, wearing padding, sweating buckets. The stone walls of the ludus absorb heat during the day and radiate it back at night. Your cell never cools down properly. You lie on your straw mattress in the darkness, sticky and miserable, trying to find a comfortable position. The air is thick and still. There's no breeze through your tiny window. You're breathing warm, stale air that tastes like it's been in someone else's lungs first. Sleep is difficult. You drift off from exhaustion more than actual rest. Midday training in summer is genuinely dangerous. Men collapse from the heat. Their legs give out, they crumple to the sand, and they have to be dragged to the shade. The trainers yell at them to toughen up, but they also know that a gladiator who dies from heat stroke is worthless, so they do allow water breaks. The water is warm and tastes faintly of the clay jug it's stored in, but you gulp it down desperately. It barely touches the thirst. You're dehydrated all the time. Your lips crack. Your tongue feels thick and fuzzy. The smell in summer is spectacular in the worst way. All those bodies, all that sweat, the latrines ripening in the heat, the food going off faster. Everything reeks. The stench hangs in the air like a fog. You become noseblind to it after a while, but whenever you leave the ludus and come back, it hits you afresh. Like walking into a wall of stink. Your tunics are perpetually damp with perspiration. They never fully dry. The fabric chafes your skin raw. Flies are everywhere in summer. They're attracted to the sweat, the food, the latrines, everything. They land on you constantly. On your face, your arms, your food, you're waving them away every few seconds. They buzz around your head in an annoying cloud. When you're trying to eat, they're landing on your spoon, on the rim of your bowl. You've given up caring about hygiene. You just eat around them. Summer nights sometimes bring thunderstorms, which are dramatic and loud, but also a blessed relief. The temperature drops. Rain comes through your window and makes puddles on the floor. You don't even care. You stand there and let the rain hit you, cooling you down for the first time in weeks. The storm turns the training yard into a mud pit. The next day's training is slippery and chaotic. People fall over constantly. The mud cakes on your legs and dries in itchy layers. Autumn is the best season, relatively speaking. The temperature drops to something bearable. The air is crisp. Training is less of an ordeal. You can actually think clearly because your brain isn't cooking. The food doesn't spoil as fast. The flies diminish. The stone walls release their stored heat gradually, and the cells become almost comfortable at night. It's still not pleasant, but compared to summer and winter, autumn is a gift. Winter is a different kind of miserable. It gets cold. Not as cold as northern parts of the empire, but cold enough. Your cell is freezing. Stone walls and floors radiate cold. Your thin blanket does almost nothing. You curl into a ball trying to keep warm. Your cellmate's body heat is the only thing making it bearable, which is the only time you're grateful for his presence. You press your back against his for warmth, and neither of you acknowledges it in the morning. Morning washing in winter is torture. The water in the courtyard basin is icy. It makes your breath catch when it touches your skin. You have to force yourself to do it. Splashing your face, your chest, your armpits. Your teeth chatter. Your whole body is covered in goosebumps. Your fingers go numb and clumsy. Getting dressed again in your damp tunic is awful. The fabric is cold and clammy against your skin. You shiver violently for the first hour of the day. Training in winter means the sand is cold and sometimes damp. Your feet ache from the cold. Your fingers stiffen and your grip on weapons becomes weaker. The trainers make you do extra warm-up exercises to get your body moving, which helps eventually, but the first 20 minutes are agony. Your muscles don't want to cooperate. Everything feels tight and resistant. Winter also brings rain, days of grey skies and drizzle. The training yard becomes a soggy mess. Training continues anyway. You slip and slide in the mud. The sand turns to sludge. The economic reality of being a gladiator is depressing. If you're a slave, you earn nothing. Your property. Any prize money from victories goes to your owner, the lanista. You might be granted small privileges or gifts, but actual money? Forget it. Your hope is that if you win enough fights, you might eventually be granted freedom. It happens, but it's rare. Most slave gladiators die before earning that privilege. If you're a volunteer, you signed a contract. You were promised payment for each fight, bonuses for wins, and a lump sum if you survive the contracted period. It sounds good on paper. The reality is that the contract is heavily weighted in the lanista's favour. There are deductions for food, accommodation, equipment, medical treatment. By the time all the costs are subtracted from your earnings, you're left with a fraction of what you expected. The prize money for victories varies wildly. A small local fight might earn you the equivalent of a few weeks' wages for a regular worker. A major fight in a big arena could earn substantially more. But again, most of it goes to the lanista. He takes his cut, which is large. Then there's fees and expenses. What you actually receive is small enough to be depressing. You risked your life for this pittance. You can't leave even if you want to. The contract is binding. If you're a volunteer, you committed for a set number of years or fights. Breaking the contract has severe legal penalties. You'd be hunted down, dragged back, and possibly enslaved or executed depending on the circumstances. You're trapped just as surely as the actual slaves, just with slightly more legal paperwork involved. Some gladiators do earn enough to retire comfortably, if they're exceptional and lucky. They fight for years, win most of their matches, become crowd favourites, and accumulate wealth. They buy their freedom if they're slaves, or complete their contracts if they're volunteers. Then they leave and try to build a normal life. But these success stories are rare. For every gladiator who retires wealthy, there's dozens who die broke or enslaved. The lanista himself is making excellent money if he runs a successful ludus. He's bought and trained gladiators, he's booking them for fights, he's collecting fees from sponsors and prize money from victories. It's a profitable business. He's not sharing those profits with you beyond the minimum required to keep you alive and functional. He'll invest in star gladiators, giving them better everything, because they're his cash cows. Everyone else is making do with the basics. There's no such thing as savings. You might accumulate a tiny amount of money over time, but there's nowhere safe to keep it. You're living in a shared cell with minimal possessions. Anything valuable will get stolen if you're not careful. Some men hide coins in their mattresses or under loose stones, but it's not exactly secure. Trust is in short supply. The betting markets around gladiator fights are huge. Wealthy Romans bet enormous sums on the outcomes. The gladiators see none of this money directly. You're the entertainment, the product, but you're not profiting from the gambling. The bookmakers are getting rich. The lanista gets appearance fees. The sponsors pay for the privilege of hosting the games. Everyone's making money off your blood and sweat except you. There's also a merchandise aspect. Popular gladiators have their image on oil lamps, pottery, mosaics. They're celebrities. Their faces and names are known across the empire. This fame doesn't translate to wealth for the gladiator himself. He's still eating barley porridge in a stone cell. The people making and selling the merchandise are the ones profiting. After a fight, if you win, you might be given gifts by wealthy admirers. A rich patron might send you wine or food or money. This is technically yours, but the lanista often claims a portion of it. You're supposed to be grateful for whatever scraps you're allowed to keep. These gifts are unpredictable and unreliable. You can't budget your life around them. The promise of future wealth keeps many volunteer gladiators going. Just a few more fights, just a few more wins, and then I'll have enough to leave and start over. It's a carrot dangled perpetually out of reach. The reality is that the few more fights might kill you, or cripple you, or leave you so damaged mentally that you can't function in normal society even if you do get out. Some former gladiators open their own businesses with their earnings. Taverns, shops, small trades. They limp away from the arena with broken bodies and trauma, but at least they've got capital. Others blow their money immediately on luxuries they've been denied for years. Good food, wine, entertainment, companionship. The money vanishes quickly and they're broke again, but at least they enjoyed it briefly. The economic exploitation is obvious once you think about it. You're providing the actual labor, taking the actual risk, suffering the actual injuries. But you're seeing almost none of the financial reward. It's feudal. It's exploitative. It's utterly normal for the Roman economy. Wealth flows upwards to owners and sponsors. You're disposable. There's no pension scheme, no retirement fund, no insurance. If you're crippled in the arena, you're done. You get tossed out of the ludus with whatever small sum you've accumulated, and that's it. You're a beggar now, or dependent on charity. The lanista doesn't care. You're no longer useful. He'll replace you with a fresh gladiator, and the cycle continues. The unfairness of it all is a constant background frustration. You're working harder and risking more than almost anyone in Rome. But the people putting in the least effort, the owners and sponsors and gamblers, they're the ones getting wealthy. You're generating enormous value for other people while barely surviving yourself. It breeds resentment, but there's nothing you can do about it. Some gladiators try to negotiate better terms. If they're successful and in demand, they have slight leverage. They might argue for a bigger percentage of winnings, or better conditions. Sometimes it works. The lanista needs his star fighters happy enough to keep performing. But for average gladiators, there's no negotiating power. You're replaceable. Your choice is accept the terms or face consequences. The dream of freedom and wealth is what keeps slave gladiators going. The fantasy that one day they'll be free, that they'll have earned their manumission through bravery and skill. It happens just often enough to keep the dream alive, but statistically, you're probably going to die before that happens. The odds are not in your favor. The relationships you might form with people outside the ludus are complicated and generally unsatisfying. Your property or contracted labor, which limits your freedom severely. You can't just go for a stroll around town. Trips outside the ludus are rare and supervised. Maybe you're taken to the baths before a big fight as part of the public spectacle. Maybe you're paraded through the streets in armor to drum up excitement. But casual social interaction with normal Romans? Not happening. Women are interested in gladiators in a complicated way. You're exotic, dangerous, famous if you're successful. Some wealthy women develop fascinations with gladiators. They send gifts and messages. Occasionally there are arranged encounters, though these are carefully controlled by the lanista. He's not letting his valuable fighters risk disease or distraction unsupervised. Any romantic entanglement is brief, transactional, and ultimately hollow. The social stigma is real though. Gladiators are both admired and looked down upon. You're thrilling to watch, impressive physically, but you're also considered morally suspect. Respectable families don't want their daughters involved with gladiators. You're too close to death, too violent, too low class regardless of your skill. The fascination is voyeuristic and shallow. Friendships with non-gladiators are almost impossible. What would you even talk about? Your lives are completely different. They go home to families and jobs and normal problems. You go back to a stone cell and tomorrow's training. The gap is unbridgeable. Even if you meet someone friendly, maintaining the relationship is impossible when you're locked in a ludus most of the time. The guards and staff at the ludus are not your friends. They're employees doing a job. Some are decent enough and treat you like human beings. Others are petty tyrants who enjoy their tiny bit of power over you. They'll deny small requests just because they can. They'll make your life slightly harder for their own amusement. You learn who to ask for favors and who to avoid. The trainers are former fighters usually, so there's some understanding there. They know what you're going through because they lived it. Some are sympathetic and genuinely try to help you improve and survive. Others are bitter and take out their frustrations on you. They had terrible experiences and now they're perpetuating that misery onto the next generation. It's a cycle. Merchants and vendors who deal with the ludus see you as curiosities. They'll chat while delivering supplies, ask about fights, tell you gossip from outside. It's a brief window into normal life and you're desperate for it. You'll stand there longer than necessary, helping unload carts just to hear someone talk about mundane things. The weather, local politics, a festival coming up. Its connection to the wider world. Children sometimes gather outside the ludus walls, trying to peek through gaps, hoping to see gladiators. They think it's exciting and glamorous. They don't understand what it actually means. You hear them shouting questions and dares to each other. It's annoying and sad. You were probably naive once too. Now you know better, and you can't explain it to them through a stone wall. If you had a family before becoming a gladiator, maintaining those relationships is nearly impossible. Letters are expensive and unreliable. Visits are rare and awkward. You've changed. They've changed. The person you were before the ludus feels like someone else entirely. You don't know how to talk to them anymore. They don't know how to talk to you. The gulf of experience is too wide. Some gladiators form bonds with attendants who work in the ludus. The men who maintain equipment, prepare food, clean. They're low status too, so there's less social distance. You might have actual conversations with them. They might do you small favors. Sneak you an extra piece of bread, pass along news from outside. These relationships are the closest thing to normal friendship you'll experience. The physicians who treat injuries are interesting because they have knowledge and status, but they're handling your body clinically. They're not friends, but they're not quite enemies either. Some are curious about gladiators, ask questions about training and fighting. Others are coldly professional, patch you up and move on. You're a medical curiosity to them, a chance to practice their skills on interesting injuries. Romance is basically impossible. There's no privacy, no freedom, no opportunity. Any encounter is sordid and rushed. There's no emotional connection. It's physical release, and that's it. Some gladiators develop feelings anyway, fixating on someone they barely know, because humans need emotional connection. But it goes nowhere. It's fantasy and frustration. The lanista is the closest thing to a parent figure in a deeply dysfunctional way. He controls everything about your life. You want his approval because his approval means better treatment. You fear his displeasure because it means suffering. It's a toxic relationship built on ownership and power. There's no affection, no real care, just management of assets. Occasionally someone from outside takes a genuine interest in you as a person. Maybe a writer working on a history, maybe a philosopher curious about your experiences. These conversations are strange. They ask questions that make you think about your life in new ways. They're treating you like you have thoughts and feelings that matter. It's disorienting and briefly validating. Then they leave, and you're back to being property. The disconnect between how you're treated inside the ludus versus in public is jarring. In the ludus, you're livestock. In the arena, you're a star. The crowd chants your name, throws flowers, screams their approval. Then the fight ends, and you're herded back to your cell like cattle. The whiplash is psychologically damaging. Who are you, actually? The crowd's hero or the Lannister's property? Letters from admirers occasionally reach you. Declarations of support, requests for tokens or favours. They're writing to an image, not to you. They don't know you. They know the persona you present in the arena. The real you, tired and scared and sore, would disappoint them. You don't respond usually. What would you even say? The mental tricks you develop to cope with this life are essential for survival. You can't think too far ahead because the future is uncertain and probably bad. You can't dwell on the past because it's gone, and mourning it is pointless. You exist in the present moment. Today's training, today's meal, tonight's sleep. That's all you can handle. Anything more is overwhelming. You learn to compartmentalize. The fear about fighting goes in a box. The resentment about your situation goes in another box. The grief about your old life goes in a third box. You shove them all away and focus on what's immediately in front of you. The wooden sword in your hand, the movement of your feet, the ache in your muscles. Physical sensations are manageable, emotions are not. Dark humor becomes a coping mechanism. You joke about death, injuries, the terrible food, the awful conditions. If you can laugh at it, it has less power over you. The humor is often inappropriate and shocking. To an outsider, it would sound disturbing. To you and your fellow gladiators, it's relief. A pressure valve that keeps you from completely losing your mind. Superstitions multiply because they give you the illusion of control. If I eat with my right hand first, I'll win. If I don't step on cracks in the stone floor, I'll avoid injury. If I touch my helmet 3 times before fighting, I'll survive. Logically, you know it's nonsense. Emotionally, you can't not do it. The ritual is comforting. It's something you control in a life where you control nothing else. You become fatalistic. What happens, happens. If you're meant to die today, you'll die. If you're meant to survive, you'll survive. This belief system is easier than constant anxiety about trying to control the uncontrollable. Fatalism brings a strange peace. You'll fight your hardest, but the outcome is in the hands of the gods or fate or chance. Your responsibility is just to show up and do your best. Focusing on small pleasures becomes crucial. The warmth of the sun on a cool morning, a slightly better than usual meal, a day when your body doesn't hurt as much. These tiny positive moments are what you cling to. They prove that not everything is terrible all the time. There are degrees of awfulness, and occasionally you land on the less awful end. You create mental escape routes, daydreaming about freedom, about what you'll do if you survive, where you'll go, what you'll eat, how you'll live. These fantasies are probably unrealistic, but they keep hope alive. Hope is dangerous because it can be crushed, but it's also necessary because without it, what's the point of continuing? Meditation and breathing techniques are discovered independently by many gladiators. You don't call it meditation, you just call it finding calm. You sit quietly and focus on your breathing. In and out, slow and steady. It helps before fights when the panic is rising. It helps after fights when you're shaking with adrenaline and delayed fear. It's a tool for managing your internal state when your external state is chaos. Physical exhaustion becomes a blessing because it shuts off your mind. When you're so tired you can't think, you can't worry. You collapse onto your mattress and you're asleep within seconds. No time for dark thoughts. No time for fear. Just the blessed nothingness of unconsciousness. You almost look forward to the hardest training days because they guarantee sleep. Anger is channeled productively. You can't rage at your situation openly or you'll be punished, but you can put that anger into training. Hit the post harder, push yourself further. The anger becomes fuel for physical performance. It's still destructive long term, eating away at you internally, but at least it's useful in the short term. You develop a hard shell emotionally. You stop reacting to things that would have horrified you before. Injuries don't shock you. Death doesn't move you. Awful conditions don't faze you. This emotional numbing is protective but also concerning. You're losing parts of your humanity, becoming harder and colder. It's necessary for survival, but it changes who you are fundamentally. Routine becomes sacred. The sameness of each day is actually comforting because it's predictable. You know what to expect. There's no surprises. Surprises are bad in your world. Routine means safety, or at least the absence of additional chaos. You cling to the schedule, even though it's monotonous, because monotony is better than uncertainty. You learn to dissociate during particularly bad moments. Your mind goes elsewhere while your body endures whatever's happening. During a painful medical procedure, during a fight, during punishment, you're not really there. You're floating above it all, observing from a distance. It's a defense mechanism that probably causes long-term psychological issues, but in the moment, it's invaluable. Stories become important, telling and retelling tales of past fights, of legendary gladiators, of funny incidents. Stories are entertainment when there's no other entertainment. They're also a way of processing experiences. You turn your trauma into narrative, and it becomes slightly more manageable. You're the hero of your own story, not just a victim of circumstances. Brotherhood with fellow gladiators is complicated, but real. You're bonded by shared suffering even when you don't particularly like each other. You've been through the same hell. That creates connection. When things are really bad, you look around and see others enduring it too, and it helps. You're not alone. You're all drowning together, which is somehow better than drowning alone. You redefine success. Success isn't happiness or wealth or love. Success is surviving another day. Success is avoiding serious injury. Success is getting through training without collapsing. The bar is so low that clearing it feels like an achievement. You celebrate tiny victories because there are no big ones. You make peace with death in a way most people never have to. You've accepted that you'll probably die young and violently. That acceptance is liberating in a strange way. Fear of death loses its power when death is inevitable and imminent. You're already dead. You're just waiting for the specifics. This mindset is morbid, but it's also freeing. Let's address what happens if you actually survive long enough to be released or earn your freedom, because that's the dream that keeps many gladiators going. First, understand that most don't make it this far. The majority die in the arena, or from injuries or illness long before their contract ends or they're manumitted. But let's say you're exceptionally skilled and lucky. You've survived years of this. You've won most of your fights. You've reached the end of your term or earned enough to buy your freedom. What happens next? You're released from the ludus with whatever money you've managed to accumulate. If you're lucky, it's a decent sum. If you're not, it's barely enough to live on for a few months. You walk out through the gates and you're free. Actually free. The first few hours are surreal. You can go where you want, do what you want. The sudden abundance of choice is paralyzing. You've had every decision made for you for years. Now, you have to decide everything yourself. Your body is wrecked. Years of training and fighting have left you with chronic pain in multiple joints. Your knees ache constantly. Your shoulders are damaged. Your back is stiff. You've got scars everywhere, a permanent record of every injury that didn't quite kill you. You probably have some old breaks that didn't heal properly. Maybe you limp slightly. Maybe your hands don't grip as strongly as they used to. You're free, but you're not whole. The trauma doesn't just disappear. You have nightmares regularly. Loud noises make you flinch. Crowds make you anxious because crowds mean the arena in your mind. You startle easily. You're hypervigilant, always assessing threats, always ready to react. This is what we'd now call PTSD, but Romans don't have a name for it. They just think you're jumpy or damaged. They're not entirely wrong. Finding work is difficult. What are your skills? Fighting. That's it. That's not particularly useful in civilian life unless you want to become a bodyguard or a trainer, which means staying in the world of violence you just escaped. Some former gladiators do this because it's all they know. They open their own training schools or hire themselves out as muscle. It's familiar if nothing else. Your social status is complicated. You're famous if you are successful, which is both good and bad. People recognize you. They want to hear stories. They buy you drinks. But you're also stigmatized. You're a former gladiator, which marks you as low class and morally questionable, regardless of your achievements. Respectable society is polite to you but doesn't fully accept you. You're an outsider. Relationships are hard to form or maintain. You've been emotionally hardened by years of survival. You don't trust easily. You don't open up. You've seen too much death and loss to get attached easily. Potential romantic partners find you difficult, distant, haunted. You have trouble connecting. The gap between your experiences and normal people's experiences is a chasm. You can't explain what it was like and they can't understand. Adjusting to normal life is deeply strange. You can sleep in a comfortable bed, but you don't sleep well. You can eat good food, but you're so used to barley porridge that rich food makes you sick. You have freedom, but you don't know what to do with it. Structure and routine were imposed on you for so long that having to create your own is bewildering. You feel lost without someone telling you what to do. Money management is not something you know. If you have savings, you might spend it foolishly. Years of deprivation make you want to indulge. Good food, wine, nice clothes, whatever pleasures you were denied. The money can disappear quickly, or you might be overly cautious, hoarding it because you remember poverty and deprivation. You can't find a healthy middle ground. Some former gladiators drink heavily. Alcohol numbs the pain, physical and mental. It helps you sleep. It quiets the memories. It's self-medication in the absence of any other treatment. This often leads to problems. Drunkenness, bar fights, spending all your money, damaging your health further. But it's a common coping mechanism. You might try to find family if you have any, going back to where you came from, reconnecting with people you knew before. This rarely goes well. Too much time has passed. You're not the person they remember. They're not the people you remember. The reunion is awkward and disappointing. You realize you don't belong there anymore. You don't belong anywhere. Some former gladiators can't adjust at all. The freedom is too much. The lack of structure is unbearable. They actually miss the ludus, which sounds insane, but makes sense in a twisted way. The ludus was awful, but it was predictable, and you knew your place. Freedom is uncertain and frightening. Some actually volunteer to go back, signing new contracts, returning to the only life that makes sense to them. It's tragic, but it happens. Others manage to build decent lives. They take their money and start small businesses. They marry and have families. They integrate into communities and become respected for surviving what they survived. They carry their scars and their trauma privately, but function outwardly. These are the success stories, the ones everyone points to as proof that you can make it through. The physical damage shortens your lifespan. The years of abuse your body took mean you age faster. Problems that might not show up until someone's 50s hit you in your 30s. Joint problems, heart problems, organ damage from untreated infections. You survived the arena, but you won't live as long as someone who had a normal life. The cost of survival is paid in years. You're haunted by the men who didn't make it, friends and acquaintances who died. You remember their faces, their names, the last time you saw them. Survivor's guilt is heavy. Why did you make it when they didn't? You weren't necessarily better or braver. You were just luckier. That knowledge sits with you constantly. You owe it to them to make your survival mean something, but you don't know how. Fame fades quickly. The crowd moves on to new gladiators, new entertainment. Within a few years, people don't remember you as well. The younger generation has never heard of you. Your victories and your suffering fade into obscurity. You're just another former gladiator, one of many. The arena chews people up and spits them out, and the machine keeps running. Some men find peace through philosophy or spirituality. They process their experiences through a framework that gives it meaning. They find ways to forgive themselves and others. They accept what happened and work on building something new. This isn't common, but it happens. These men often become advisors or teachers, helping others with their hard-won wisdom.